Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. We do expect business resume in the next few minutes. That's at 17 hours. And so before the break, we did see the chairperson of the Committee on Energy, Water Development and Tourism, Mr. Kangombe, move a motion urging the House to adopt the report of the Committee on Energy, Water Development and Tourism on the performance audit report on the sustainable management of water resources in Zambia, that's 2019 to 2022, for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 30th November 2023. And this motion is being seconded by Luapula, Member of Parliament. And so we do expect Mr. Kangombe to finish off his motion, and the seconder is actually going to have a word or two regarding this particular report, urging the House to adopt the report of the Committee on Energy, Water Development and Tourism on the performance audit on the sustainable management of water resources in Zambia, that's 2019 to 2022. And that will mark business for the mark the end of business for today. That's Tuesday, 20th February 2024. We did have a ministerial statement that was delivered by the Minister of Agriculture. And just now we await for the Speaker's entrance into the chamber. Television, we just saw the Speaker's entrance into the Speaker. That's the second Deputy Speaker. And as soon as the quorum is constituted, business will be transacted. 1/3 of members of Parliament need to be present in the House in order for business to be transacted. As the House is considering a motion that is still being moved by the chairperson of the Committee on Energy, Water Development and Tourism, Mr. Kangombe, urging the House to adopt the report of the Committee on Energy, Water Development and Tourism on the performance audit report on the sustainable management of water resources in Zambia, that's 2019 to 2022, for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 30th November 2022. And so as soon as the quorum is constituted, business will resume. Remember, the House has just now we take you live to the chamber for continuation of proceedings. Good afternoon.
When business was suspended, the House was considering the motion moved by the Honorable Member for Sesheke that this House do adopt the report of the Committee on Energy, Water Development and Tourism on the performance audit of the sustainable management water of resources in Zambia 2019 to 2022 for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 30th November 2023, and the Honorable Member for Sesheke was debating. May the Honorable Member continue.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the committee observes that according to the Urban and Regional Planning Act number 3 of 2015, an integrated development plan, IDP, indicated priority areas for the protection of ecological sensitive areas, heritage, and the cultural sites. However, the interviews with representatives from the Provincial Planning Office in Kawendola and Chipata revealed that the local authorities did not prepare IDPs. Mr. Speaker, the committee, therefore, strongly recommends that WAMA takes a keen interest in ensuring that all districts are preparing IDPs and that the IDPs mainstream water resource management. The committee further recommends that WAMA actively participates in the formulation and implementation of IDPs, either directly or indirectly, by ensuring that the district officers responsible for the IDPs formulation and implementations are well trained. Mr. Speaker, the committee also dealt with the issue of lack of collaboration, sectoral linkages, and joint programs between the WAMA and stakeholders such as the National Heritage Conservation Commission, the Forestry Department, ZEMA, the local authorities, and government ministries with regards to the management and protection of water resources. The committee, therefore, recommends that WAMA, in collaboration with the National Heritage Conservation Commission, should undertake land audits and boundary marking of all natural heritage sites to define boundaries for enhanced protection of water resource sites. The committee further recommends that WAMA, in collaboration with the Ministry of Green Economy and Environment and the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, should put in place measures that will engage traditional leaders on the need to protect forests. It is the view of the committee that this will prevent activities that may lead to deforestation and promote the sustainability of water resources within the forestry reserves. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, allow me to place it on record my gratitude on behalf of the committee to all the stakeholders who tendered both written and oral submissions. The committee also wishes to thank you, Mr. Speaker, and the Clerk of the National Assembly for the guidance and support rendered during its deliberations. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move.
Thank you. Does the seconder wish to speak now or later?
Now, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Luapula.
It's with gratitude that I recognize the input of your honourable members on the Committee on Energy, Water Development and Tourism vis-à-vis the Auditor General's report, the performance audit in relation with the sustainability of water resource management in Zambia from 2019 to 2022. I commend the committee's chairperson, Honorable Romeo Kangombe, for competently moving the motion for adoption by this august House. Further, I would like to applaud the work of our committee who anchored this work. Mr. Speaker, your committee recognizes the adverse impacts of environment damage on our planet and Zambia in particular. Therefore, the national crusade for an integrated, sustainable, the national drive for an integrated, sustainable water management policy which can benefit not only this era but generations to come is most welcome. In support of the report, Mr. Speaker, I would want to highlight a few observations made by the committee. Notable observation of your committee, Mr. Speaker, is that the monitoring of water resources in Zambia is done by Water Resource Management Authority, WAMA, through collaboration with local authorities using methods which are outdated, Mr. Speaker, and these methods which are used are not in sync with the 21st century thinking. Mr. Speaker, government must endeavor to fund WAMA in order to modernize the operations of WAMA in monitoring Zambia's water resources and other water bodies. In light of the importance of water, which is an economic driver and a key factor in the existence of life, it's imperative that modern technology is employed in the management of water resources in the country. Modern technology, Mr. Speaker, would include the use of drones fitted with sensors, with access to satellite imaging technology, would be essential. The development of an accurate database for Zambia's water resources and Zambia's water resource infrastructure management with the utilization of artificial intelligence would help the country make key timely interventions vis-à-vis the climate weather challenges. These modern tools would allow WAMA to conduct forecasting in hydrology. Mr. Speaker, as we embark on our solutions in the sustainable management of water, it is important that we understand the issue of climate change and its impact. Climate change, Mr. Speaker, is transboundary. The current conversation around carbon neutrality and keeping the global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius, our country, Zambia, like many other third world countries, is largely compliant. Yet, Zambia suffers catastrophic consequences of climate change due to lack of compliance by our colleagues in the developed North. Our colleagues in the developed North continue to contribute over 90% carbon emissions globally, therefore continuing to damage the environment. The Zambian government, Mr. Speaker, must upscale its regional and global advocacy in our quest for climate justice. The issue of the so-called carbon credit, Mr. Speaker, is neither a national, regional, or global solution to the environmental damage. Mr. Speaker, it is key, as I conclude, that we must seek the input of our local experts or scientists or engineers from the academia, professional bodies, among others. Their input must be solicited because by virtue of them being Zambians, they have vested national interest in the successful performance of a sustainable water resources management policy, which stands to benefit not only this era, but Zambia's future generations. Mr. Speaker, with that said, I second this motion and sincerely thank you.
Thank you. Any further debate? The Honorable Member for Chitambo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, allow me to thank the mover of this motion and the seconder of the motion in the manner in which they've moved and seconded the motion. Mr. Speaker, it's very gratifying to note that an audit performance report is today on the floor of the House, and we are adding our voices to it. This is how it should be. Mr. Speaker, this audit performance report, or the audit performance, was done more like a research. I say so because there is a very big objective statement in your report, Mr. Speaker, that suggests that the objective of the audit was to assess whether the Ministry of Water Development and Sanitation through the Water Resource Management, sorry, I'll read again, whether the Ministry of Water Development and Sanitation through the Water Resources Management Authority had put in place efficient and effective measures that ensured sustainable management of water resources. That was a very good objective, Mr. Speaker, but I bemoan to state that the auditor himself with his officers did not do a good job, Mr. Speaker, and I expected the committee to have at some point rejected their report. Can you imagine, Mr. Speaker, out of 116 districts in Zambia, they only managed to visit 11 districts, meaning that any audit or any research that is being done cannot qualify to be one, because they only did not even half, neither did they go up to 70% as per the requirement. So their report, Mr. Speaker, though it has got a lot of information in it that could enrich the nation, it still lacks a lot of input to it because they should have at least gone half. And the reasons they are forwarding, Mr. Speaker, are that because of lack of resources, they couldn't manage to do more districts. We bemoan this. We sit in this House all the time, Mr. Speaker, to appropriate funds to needy areas. And it is upon the Minister of Water Development and Sanitation, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that such kind of audit reports are given sufficient funds so that Zambians can get what they're supposed to feel and hear from the ministry and from the members of parliament as they acknowledge to the audit performance report. Not only did they do that, Mr. Speaker, even the catchment areas were not all of them visited. They only visited about 4, leaving out about 2. There are only 6. They should have gone everywhere to find out what is obtaining there. And Mr. Speaker, if you go into details of this report, you discover that there are a lot of variances, and this takes me very aback because 6 years down the line, today another vice president there was also complaining about officers at district level where they don't cooperate or coordinate when they are doing things. In this report also, Mr. Speaker, if you go to page 10, you discover that workers or officers of government at district level, they do not coordinate. They are working in silos. And this is the problem which they are having because most land in designated areas is being allocated by the Ministry of Land without consulting other ministries. And, Mr. Speaker, when the Ministry of Green Economy was called to the committee, the ministry confessed that this is very true. And as a ministry, Green Economy is having a challenge because these other ministries are not cooperating. And they don't want to coordinate. Now, Mr. Speaker, 60 years down the line, we are still suffocating and fighting to find civil servants who can deliver for this nation. Mr. Speaker, this report is a very good report, and it shows inconsistencies and the failure which our colleagues in government are having at the moment. They need to go down to the grassroots, Mr. Speaker, and address these problems, because these are problems that your report is indicating to the whole House here. Mr. Speaker, it won't make good reading for the ministers here to be shaking hands when their people on the ground are not doing the best to ensure that whatever they are planning in Lusaka is happening in our districts which are rural. Mr. Speaker, I like the conclusion of your report. It is advising government to revisit user fees for commercial users of water so that they should start paying cost-reflective fees. Indeed, it's very important, because why should we be subjecting these people who are making a lot of money to be paying little monies when they make major profits out of the water that they use in this country? It is only in this country, Mr. Speaker, that you discover that people are misusing our water to the levels that they want. We've got a lot of people who come and invest in this country in terms of commercial farming. Do you know why? Because our user fees charged by WAMA are very low. I would prompt the minister to revisit this and ensure that they pay what is required. And Mr. Speaker, they are also being told that the Land Tribunal, which looks at matters to do with land wrangles and so on, has got a lot of matters to deal with. And it's been a challenge for them to finish these matters because they've got a backlog. The committee is advising the Minister of Lands to surrender this land tribunal so that it can go and be a division under the High Court. This would be very good, Mr. Speaker, because land wrangles, Mr. Speaker, they require people with a lot of experience, technique, and professionalism to handle them. The ministry alone, the Ministry of Land, cannot manage, and it can even breed corruption. So I support this report, and I beg to stop here, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Mbawala.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, and welcome. Since this is the first time we are interacting with you, Happy New Year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The people of Mbawala wish to support the report, the ATR, Action Taken report, ably moved by Honourable Kangombe, Member of Parliament for Sesheke, and seconded ably by Honourable Katotowe from Luapula. Mr. Speaker, the report on energy and water development is a very crucial report, especially for Zambia and the people of Mbawala, who are experiencing a big shift in the area of climate change. The sustainable water resources and putting an efficient system in which to protect our aquifers or water resource zones is very, very important. And it's only disappointing that in this report, the WAMA only managed to get to those 11 districts, and also only managed to get 6 out of 16 target of recharge zones. We would have loved to see them get to achieve the 16 target for recharge zones, so that we could do, as a country, be able to protect our water sources. Climate change is real, and as people of Mbawala, we have experienced it big time. This time around, we are very dry, no water, even our rivers are dry. Our rivers, like Munyege River, have expanded hugely, and they are full of sand. These rivers have provided the water lines to the aquifer zones in the constituency. And even as we want to sink as many boreholes as possible and repair as many boreholes as possible, without the recharge zones being protected and being supported, it will become difficult because it will become very expensive to sink boreholes, as you have to go above 150 meters or more to access water. And sometimes you get a lot of dry boreholes, which we already experienced in the last 2 years, having gotten a number of dry boreholes in some areas in the constituency, such as in Chirantambo and also somewhere in Macha. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, we want to support this report and ensure that the Ministry of Green Economy gets involved in collaborative manner with the Ministry of Water, Development and Sanitation to ensure that we protect these important recharge zones. For example, here where we are at Parliament, just next door here, years back when us people were students at UNZA, the whole of East Park and the rest, arcades, was an aquifer, was a recharge zone for Lusaka, and it was providing us with good water. But you can see what we have experienced, both in stormwater control challenges, as well as having dry boreholes in Lusaka, leading to some of the challenges which we have recently seen as a country. Therefore, WAMA must I think, improve on their technology and survey the entire country so that we can know all the recharge zones, the aquifers and the like, so that these are fully protected. They are identified and protected and supported. Therefore, I support the need for improved resourcing and capacity building of WAMA and their brothers and sisters at Green Economy to ensure that they carry a quality job and not expose us to lack of water, because water is everything. Without water, for us people who look after cattle, our cattle will not survive. Already, this year is already a big challenge. From 2023 into 2024, it's already a big challenge for us to find drinking water for our cattle. It becomes a big challenge for our agricultural programs. It's a big challenge for our gardening programs. We're encouraging gardening in schools, but just last week I was inspecting one school, Simunzere School, a dry borehole there. So you can see the challenges we're going to be facing. Therefore, we need a strong collaborative and movement, as well as an urgent matter to ensure that these recharge zones get protected and guarantee us the future for us and for our future generations while we need the water today. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Chiruvi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving people of Chiruvi a privilege to add a voice on the motion at hand. Mr. Speaker, we are gathered here today talking about water resource management. Zambia at independence was 752,000 plus square kilometer. Today, it's still the same surface. And yet, the population and human activity has been increasing. So if what we are discussing in the report is a process that is supposed to contribute to planning, developing, and planning water resources, it means that we have to be proactive and act accordingly. Mr. Speaker, when we talk about water, the benefits of water is drinking, sanitation, food production, energy generation, inland water transport, water-based recreation, and many other that are to do with the human activity. Given that scenario, Mr. Speaker, I do not see how our water is contributing properly to irrigation system, especially even in the areas where we have water in abundance like Chiruvi. In terms of food production, it's not sticky. I do not see how our water is contributing properly to energy generation, even in areas like Chulubi, which has got abundant water. If I can refer to you, Mr. Speaker, that Chulubi is one of the districts that is presumably connected to national grid, but does not have electricity. So, looking at this, Mr. Speaker, when we look at, I can see that the Minister of Energy is cautioning me, but I think the Minister of Energy knows very well that Chulubi has been having almost constant road shedding, not challenges. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, I want to indicate that there is poor environmental management of our resources. There is also poor ecological management of intelligence that comes through as in terms of information. Mr. Speaker, I want to indicate that when it comes to the current situation, I think a few hours ago we were discussing an agriculture-based issue which is heavily linked to water management, which is talking about the issue of inputs and many other factors as such. Such disturbances.
May the honourable member continue. I will ride on the procedure that was already laid for the day. No more point of orders for today. May the honourable member continue.
Mr. Speaker, I do realize that as we debate, we ought to know that it is a reality that water resources is unevenly distributed in the country. I want to demonstrate to you, Mr. Speaker, that from the drought of 1993, places like Southern Province have not had consistency rainfall, as it was a maize belt. As we speak today, Mr. Speaker, Southern Province, including the statistics that was presented today, has gone down in terms of maize production, which is linked to food production generally. And realizing that the water resources are not evenly distributed, the nation needs to know how do we network the available water, both surface water as well as the groundwater, so that it benefits the inhabitants of Zambia at the end of the day in the areas of benefit of water, as I mentioned. Mr. Speaker, one of the weaknesses that we are grappling with as a nation is both policy and legal framework. If you go into the Land Act and many other water acts, you find that it's quite porous in the manner that we manage water. And the managing of land and water has been highly politicized in the way this water is supposed to be distributed. Mr. Speaker, as development activities are putting pressure on the use of water, both underground water as well as surface water, there is need that we sit down around the table and replan the country. I know, for instance, that earlier on, the debaters that were before me did refer to integrated district plans. The integrated district plans will remain an academic exercise as far as we do not attend to serious issues. For instance, as far as we want to go out there and train people in different areas, how many people are we training in ideology such that they can manage water? How many people are we training in managing land such that they can distribute? Water is also linked to managing of our forests. I know that one of the second that did link to the way we are talking about carbon taxi and all that, and all we see is money. Many of what we are using, even in our response to climate change, is very foreign. We do not have a local policy. It is what we get from COP26, COP27 that we come and implement in Zambia. But we have a different environment that does not, cannot be compared to America and any other country that is involved in depleting the ozone layer. We are not involved directly in depleting the ozone layer. they are involved because their places are highly industrialized. We are still enjoying the flavor of the natural resources. But we have been forced to go and make policy and make legal framework alongside those countries that are actually suffocating in terms of natural resources. Now we are at this station where we have to talk about our own water management. When we boast of more than 40% of SADC water, which we just need to have a policy to distribute it so that it can produce food, it can help in sanitation, it can help in making sure that we have got enough hydropower. Mr. Speaker, I do realize that there are a lot of my friends that have indicated who are equally wise and would like to contribute to this particular motion. The people of Suru would like to raise their case on this note.
The Honourable Member for Chama South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will not be as researchful as the people of Chilubi. Even the voice note, I will try to be a bit low, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the report by your committee is very worrisome. If you look at what it states about WAMA, saying WAMA does not have information or data on our water recharge points in the country. They cannot give us that information. Not to mention the district integrated plans. We are told that we don't have that as a nation. But Mr. Speaker, I will tell you that I do know that we do have the National Integrated Development Plan. The question is, how did we come up with such a document which does not dovetail into the district integrated development plans? Because national development will be disjointed, will not be speaking to each other. If the district development plans do not speak to the national development plans, then how are we planning as a nation? I know that the Ministry of Local Government has given instructions to all local authorities to come up with the district integrated development plans. Water catchment areas. Your report has indicated that almost all the dambos, all the ecologically sensitive areas are not well managed. Maybe we need protection from the noise that is coming from honorable ministers there. And we are submitting to them, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is extremely worrisome. I think in sub-Saharan Africa, we might be the only country that is producing charcoal. Yes, go to Tanzania, you will not see charcoal. Go to Zimbabwe, you will not see charcoal. They are even repackaging the charcoal that we are producing and come and resell it in our chain stores. Your report has indicated that those who come from the Copper Belt, Kafue River, has been mentioned. There's serious encroachment. Here in Lusaka, mass media, you know, as a seat, we are told that we are sitting on a fecal matter when it comes to water resource. The way God designed the earth, geologists or those that have studied geology will tell us that there are areas that are particularly designed to be water recharge points, and we've tampered with those water recharge points. We are told Lusaka West Wellfield or Lusaka South Wellfield is also encroached. And your report is recommending that demolitions should be exercised. And when the government implements such a program, it is us politicians who say this government is heartless. And yet we see what happens, for example, at National Assembly Motel. Just the other year, is it last year? Honorable Speaker, your members had to be relocated. All that was happening because of encroachment that has taken place there. Wall fences, structures have been built where they are not supposed to be built. So this report, for me, is extremely distressing report. We live as if we do not have technocrats. We live as if we do not have laws. I know the best culprits are us politicians because we are the ones who influence these illegal activities. Honorable Speaker, I will be submitting that those ecologically sensitive areas, government take action. We need to support you. Along Thabo Mbeki Road, when it rains, the entire area up to Arcade becomes a river. And that is the ecologically sensitive area where your report has indicated mass media area. Can we break these structures as your report has reported? Encroachment on Kafubu River, encroachment on Lusaka South Wellfield, where we are supposed to be getting water for our people. This has a multiplier effect. Higher infections means more budget for our health, more resources that should be able to go for our economic development, for many other sectors going to health, just because we did not do the correct thing. So, Honorable Speaker, as a nation we should reach at a point that a wrong is a wrong, a right is a right. Not where when the government is implementing something is right, then we want to politic. And yet we are facing these challenges. So for me, it should not just end here. Let the government ministries take the multi-sectoral approach in addressing these matters, because they touch on the planning, which involves local government, they touch on health, they also touch on security. You can imagine when we face cholera, what happens? The Minister of Defense will have to be activated to ensure that cleaning is done. People's lives are protected. And yet the source of this problem is in our ability to follow the law. We have enough legal structures to protect these ecologically sensitive areas. So, Honorable Speaker, in my conclusion, can the government take action and correct this situation? Let's protect our recharge points, let's protect our wetlands, let's protect our forests. Right now in my constituency, we have foreigners that are cutting timber indiscriminately. When I take action, I speak, you'll be seen to be wrongdoer. Wrongdoers are being praised. So for government, take decisive action and decisions. Right people will support you. And the people of Chama South will support you. I submit, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Lumezi.
Mr. Speaker, thank you most sincerely. And from the onset, Mr. Speaker, permit me to mention that your report is one of the most sensitive reports that should have kept all your members in the chamber. Mr. Speaker, if we are patriots as a people, as and the citizenry, this is a report that should have taken the whole day to talk to. Honorable Mr. Speaker, this report has brought a lot of issues. Mr. Speaker, we as a country are grappling with issues of drought, where much earlier today even the Right Honorable Minister of Agriculture was being questioned on agriculture and GMOs. We are dealing with one matter that is a solution to climate change, global warming. Mr. Speaker, rarely do I mention that I have been one of the few citizens that sat in Kyoto in 2007 when the Kyoto Protocol on climate change was being adopted. Mr. Speaker, your report has given us a lot of revelations. Mr. Speaker, this report has limited a lot of submissions to WAMA. I tend to take a different view, with your permission, Mr. Speaker. Today, our country is sick with cholera. We blame WAMA. Today, our country has meal shortages. We blame it on WAMA. Today, Mr. Speaker, we are gathered in the People's House, the August House, and Mr. Speaker, God should continue blessing you. The noise from my brother from Petauke, Honorable Speaker, I need your guidance, is hitting on my left ear. Honorable Speaker, I need your protection.
May you continue, Honorable Member?
But am I protected, Honorable Speaker?
You are protected.
Thank you. Honorable Mr. Speaker, we need to depart as a country from a culture of allowing the contemporary bourgeois to dictate to us, to say in Lumezi, you have to trade in carbon. What they're doing to us is that they're paying us $50 million, for example, and that land cannot be used for farming. That land cannot be used to industrialize. And the people that are giving us crumbs are dictating to us.
Honorable Member, relevance of your speech. Ensure that we confine to our report. We should not veer off. You can continue.
Honorable Speaker, I speak on carbon trade with a lot of authority. I sat in Kyoto in 2007. They are telling us, in fact, Honorable Speaker, a motion is coming for this executive right now to abolish carbon trading. And I'm citing serious authorities, because what carbon trading is doing is killing the future generations of this country. On this one, I'm an authority, Honorable Speaker. I spoke in front of Kofi Annan in 2007. One of the rare privileges that a Zambian citizen has. You cannot tell us from Dubai that we are giving Zambia $50 million so that you have carbon trading, yet they are having industries established. If I have my farm in Lumezi, basic example, Mr. Speaker, for an understanding of a basic citizen, is that I can't grow at that land, I can't put an industry, I don't create jobs. So carbon trading is a new slave trade for the African people. That's a reality. It's a reality, and I'm speaking to facts. If there is something we need to abolish and kill as a country, is to receive free money in the name of carbon trade, because that's being slaves. Mr. Speaker, this is being sincere to myself, my daughter, and my children that are yet to come. Mr. Speaker, I'm protecting the future of this country. We cannot continue to trade, saying grow trees at your farm, and you do not have industries. They're giving you $50 million. What is $50 million is just 16% of that. I think we can no longer be colonized, Mr. Speaker, as Zambians that are well informed. That generation where others came here 25 years ago do not understand the aspirations of the future should be entertained. Mr. Speaker, this report came at the right time. Mr. Speaker, this report should have been given more time than the normal allocated time because it's speaking to our realities. Mr. Speaker, not to wish you bad. Mr. Speaker, you are slightly 10 years ahead of me. I will leave.
Honorable member, don't desist from putting me in your debate. At times it's not necessary to invite controversy, you know. At least let's be honorable enough. At times to portray that we know a lot when we don't, it's not a good culture. Let's ensure that we stick to the motion. Because if you continue in that way, the speaker may react. You can continue. May you continue, honorable member?
Mr. Speaker, speaking authoritatively on this particular matter, the ozone layer has not been depleted by the African people. The ozone layer has not been depleted by the people of Lumezi. Mr. Speaker, I speak with a lot of authority on this particular matter, and my book that I'm writing is based on climate change and global warming. I shall not accept, Mr. Speaker, to be ridiculed with my submissions because I believe firmly that carbon trading is the new modern way of enslaving the Zambian people and the African people. Mr. Speaker, we should not in any way aspire to be champions of receiving free money from the Europeans in the name of carbon trade. Mr. Speaker, WAMA is just a piece of the iceberg in an ocean and saying we blame WAMA. I appreciate your report, Mr. Speaker. The only thing I don't appreciate is the time that you've given us, because this is a very serious issue, and anyone who loves this country will not blame the current government for the drought we're experiencing. But being politicians, we tomorrow will come and blame the executive, yet we are going through drought. Mr. Speaker, sometimes we must be sincere with ourselves. This matter is a very sensitive issue. The time is what I condemn. We needed to have a very honest conversation. It's not politics. This matter deserves time. If I was to make a request, Mr. Speaker, I would say, can we have the conversation with the executive? How do we handle the drought? Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, your time is not sufficient. I thank you.
Thank you. The honorable member for Sinazongwe.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for giving the people of Sinazongwe a chance to talk about the audit report. Mr. Speaker, this audit report brought before the House today speaks to what is obtaining in Sinazongwe. It speaks to what is obtaining in Southern Province. It speaks to what is obtaining in Eastern Province, Central, Lusaka, and also Western Province. Mr. Speaker, this revelation, it shouldn't be trivialized. This revelation by this audit report, it needs to be considered and an action should be taken. This is where the government should put resources to address the happenings in the country. When you look at the drought that we are going through, specifically, this audit report speaks to that. We had water springs in Sinazongwe, which had water throughout the air. We had streams in Sinazongwe that had water throughout the air. But this time, it's a different ballgame. The water springs have dried up. They just exist a short period during rain season. Once the rain season is over, the streams and water springs, they dry up. It means there is something wrong that has been happening for quite some time. There is something that was not addressed before, and this audit report should have come much later, much earlier. What we are going through in Sinazongwe in terms of drought, southern province, and many more provinces, this would have been arrested. My fear, Mr. Speaker, is if we don't address this issue, if we treat this issue as business as usual, at some point in the near future, bigger rivers like Zambezi, Kashue, if not careful, they will dry up as well. Because if we start tampering with their sources, the sources of these rivers, we are calling for more problems. We are calling for more trouble. So it's high time that we treated the water sources with the care they deserve. Because water is life. Without water, we are as good as dead. So it's high time that the executive took this audit report very, very seriously. We've seen a lot of happenings. Even deforestation is part of the reason why we are seeing our water bodies drying up. Deforestation needs to be arrested. We need to find a solution to replace charcoal so that at least the water sources can be protected. Once you expose these streams and rivers, you cut all the trees, these rivers will dry up. So as the government, as the executive, I appeal to the executive to treat this audit report very, very seriously. We are experiencing a lot of dry bores in Sinazongwe, about 4 wards. You can go as far as 120 meters deep. You don't get any water. So it's high time we went back to the drawing board and look at where we went wrong. If it means putting up correct measures to alleviate the current situation, we need to do. If it needs resources, let us invest in water management for the future generation. With those few words, Mr. Speaker, I wish to submit. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Petoke Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving the good people of Petaoke this opportunity to add their voice on this important report. Mr. Speaker, before I go ahead, let me first welcome you. You are most welcome, Mr. Speaker, and we missed you. Mr. Speaker, I want to mention to you to say the good people of Petaoke, they brought an issue and they were asked also to bring evidence to the matter of urgent public importance, but I never had an opportunity how I can raise, but I can use this chance also to raise the evidence on the table and continue with
Order, Honourable Member. We thought that you are supposed to debate, to submit your debate because of the report that has been laid.
Yes.
So ensure that that is what you are supposed to do. That matter has already elapsed. The issue of matters of urgent public importance is an issue of the past. If you want it, maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow you'll be opportuned to have the chance to lay your concerns through the matter of urgent public importance. For now, any submission should be in line with the report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your guidance.
It's unfortunate that we are asked to bring the evidence, but we are not allowed. But anyway, I'll follow your guidance, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as the people of Petauke are blessed to have a researcher as their representative. Yeah. And it's very good that I've gone through this report. And as a researcher, I can be able to compare my research with this report. I can assure to you to say the committee did a very good job, Mr. Speaker. But Mr. Speaker, to add what the findings of the committee, I can see on committee observation and recommendation, they found that the other reasons which are causing that, you find that a lot of areas in our water buffer zone area and also forest are being encroached, Mr. Speaker. That is the main reason. But Mr. Speaker, I can confirm to you to say through my research and the people of Petauke, we found that the government with the researchers, they can work together to arrest this problem, Mr. Speaker. And how can they arrest this problem, Mr. Speaker? They can only arrest this problem if the government and the researchers, they work together to see how they can start harvesting this water. Because we have got other areas which are not forest protected areas, where the mountains are. If you're coming from Eastern Province, there are a lot of mountains, and then those areas, they have got streams, and they usually be blessed with a lot of water. So if the Ministry of Green Economy, Water, Energy, they can come together with the researchers, they can find solution to put up dams in those areas and start harvesting water. Because those forests, I'll give you an example, like Mopia Forest, which is in Petauke, it's in town, Mr. Speaker. And then the population right now in Petauke, the way it was in 1964, Petauke, I'm sure the population, just in the urban part of Petauke, it was less than 1 million. But today, when you go to Petauke, we are more than 1 million, Mr. Speaker. As a result, that Mupya forest can't survive because people, I'm sure you saw when the president said that each and everyone is supposed to have a tractor or maybe farming equipment to start arresting the shortage of food in our country, Mr. Speaker. So they are forced now to use that forest to cultivate food to put on their table. As Zambians, the staple food, it's through cultivation, Mr. Speaker. So that's why those people, you find that now they're encroaching those forests because they don't have any land. And Mr. Speaker, they can't go and start cultivating in the mountains. But as a researcher, I was once in China where I went to do my research. Mr. Speaker, I found out that in China, people are planting trees in the mountains, Mr. Speaker. And then those flat areas, they are left for cultivation, which here in our case in Zambia, it's not the case. You find that we are not utilizing the mountains, but we want now to utilize the same land which we are using for cultivation, which you want us now to leave it for the forest, to start planting trees, which is not supposed to be like that. Let Mupya forest, Mr. Speaker, when you come to Petauke, give them to the people to start using for cultivation, to put food on the table. Because, Mr. Speaker, when I came here in Parliament on my maiden speech, I mentioned to say the people of Petauke, 95% are farmers. And then right now when you go to Petauke, we don't have land, Mr. Speaker. Where are we going to get that land from? That's why you find that whatever piece of land we come across into our eyes, either it's a forest, we are forced to encroach. But if now that those forests, the government, which is the executive, the Minister of Water is there, I'm sure he's able to concentrate from whatever I'm saying, with the Minister of Green Economy, they should utilize these researchers, us researchers, so that they can now start moving those forests from areas like Mopia to the mountains, so that in those mountains we should start planting trees like China and start harvesting water. Not just because Zambia is a land-locked country, Mr. Speaker, and we are blessed with a lot of lands almost every year. It's only that this year, when God sent me to bring a motion of religious education, when that motion was rejected here in Parliament to say God is not supposed to work with the government, these are the results. That's why we've got droughts. That's why we need a lot of prayers, Mr. Speaker. We need to pray for our country. Like such leaders who rejected that motion shouldn't be even be tolerated. In fact, they are supposed to be the ones, even in forefront, to call for National Day of fasting and prayer, so that we can start receiving our rains, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I can assure to you to say, in Petauke, we don't just dream that maybe a camel can enter a needle, but we dream, we do the research nicely, Mr. Speaker. This is Petauke. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I just say thank you, Mr. Speaker, and you are most welcome. I'm sure with you coming, the people of Petauke, they had missed their voice, which wasn't around here in Parliament, but I'm sure now it will be around since you have come. Amen, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Zambezi East.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you most sincerely for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this very important motion, which relates to a report of your committee on tourism and natural resources. Indeed, talking about water resources, I am just fresh from considering a report of the Auditor General in a different jurisdiction. It was a report of the Auditor General on the performance of the commercial utilities, which are water companies in this country. There are 11 of them. And included in that report is the performance of WOMA itself, which is a regulatory authority that looks at water resources. And detailed in that report, and I think members will do well to refer to that report of 2020. I think the Committee on Procedural Bodies looked at that report because we were reviewing the performance of commercial utilities. I will relate this to the motion that is on the floor of the House, and this is how relevant it is. Because the Auditor General flagged the issue of how WOMA performed. And this was a report for 2020. It was actually a financial report. But this is related to this performance audit report because an issue was raised about the performance of WOMA. And I'll state a few salient issues that the Auditor General actually outlined. The Auditor General actually mentioned about specific issues, failure to even meter abstraction points of water. If the basics of failure to meter abstraction points, which are under WOMA, was eminent around 2020, it goes without saying that government then didn't pay serious particular attention to preservation of water sources, these natural water sources. As if that was not enough, I'll talk about non-functional hydrometer stations, also managed by WOMA. WOMA is an institution, for those of you who might not understand, this is how water is managed in this country. There is a regulatory authority called NWASCO. NWASCO regulates the water utility companies, but WOMA is more responsible for the resource itself, where the water comes from. That is their area of focus. The water resources come from underground water, we have rainwater, and surface water. So all these are sources of our water, which need to be managed. Without managing them, the resource can be altered, because this comes from an ecosystem that exists. Any disturbance to the ecosystem, the results are what we are going through now. We have seen streams drying up and the like. Of course, other factors are involved, but it is all about management of the ecosystem. Another good example is the way Forest 27 was carelessly managed. That is another source of water, groundwater, especially the fact that when rainwater fell on the surface, it needed to go down, and it beefs up the groundwater. So when you disturb a recharge area like that one, we end up having what we have now. The debate on Forest 27 is for another day. But I think for now, in my opinion, that's my personal opinion, please take it like that. It's already too late that we should reverse. We cannot go and start maybe demolishing houses in the Forest 27 now and think that that place will restore its position to what it was before it was altered. I don't think that would happen. I think let the sleeping dogs lie, but we need to learn from that example that the ecosystem does not need to be disturbed anyhow, because it affects the water resource. So I thought of making these comments, and I would like to implore the executive to come up with much more stringent laws that will help to make sure that the water resources, the sources of water, are preserved, especially those that have to do with the ecosystem. The Ministry of Green Economy and Environment is responsible for ensuring that this environment is preserved. So we need to come up with laws that are really hard-hitting. Sometimes they'll deprive us from these temporal benefits we get from these natural resources, but they preserve us from these challenges we are facing, like the global warming. Now we have these droughts coming in. So those laws are the ones, when they are weak, you have the situation where people cut trees indiscriminately and ending up with a situation like where we are. We also need to come up with a clear policy, Honorable Minister of Water Development and Sanitation. We need to have a very clear policy about water, especially the fact that the debate on the floor of the House relates to the water resource. We need to have a clear policy of how we shall manage our water resource. Both, not really both, the groundwater, the surface water, and the rainwater. All these sources, we need to find a way. If it's rainwater, we need to come up with a policy of how we can trap it and preserve it. If it is the natural way of preserving it, it means those recharge places, the issues of reserved forests, which are recharge centers, we need to make sure that this is followed religiously. And only a clear policy would help us actually stay on that right path. So we need to come up with a clear policy, and this policy must be well known to everyone, so that all citizens stick to the rules, and we will then be guaranteed of ensuring that we have a proper water resource. What I admire with our colleagues in developed countries is they are very faithful to what they agree as a people. You know, when you go to China today, they have planted that country with trees. Everywhere where you go, it's green. And everybody respects the policy that has been put in to make sure that China is replanted with trees. So even here, if we can change our mindset and stick to our policies or what we have agreed for ourselves, we will make Zambia be better and contribute to actually this improvement which has affected the globe. Mr. Chairperson, Mr. Speaker, I thought with these few words I could contribute to this very important debate so that we can come up with, together, we can come up with things that can help us live well here on earth. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Member for Kawambwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I desire to add a word to this important report produced by colleagues in the Committee on Energy, Water Development and Tourism. And I want to congratulate them for tabling this audit report. Indeed, this audit report gives us a tip of the iceberg of the challenges and issues that we have at hand as a country. The object of this particular report, according to what has been put in the report, was to assess whether the ministry, through WAMA, has put in place effective measures to ensure sustainable management of our water resource. Mr. Speaker, I also speak for the caucus, the parliamentary caucus on environment and climate change. And this report, as one of our colleagues alluded to, this is a report that all members of parliament should have listened to. It is a report that every one of us should be interested in, because this report speaks to some other issues that we've been discussing earlier today, in the day, as the Minister of Agriculture was talking about the drought and the food situation in our country, as the Minister of Green Economy was speaking to us last week about the 2024 rain pattern and rain performance. It all comes to this. It is about water. When we speak about water as a country, Mr. Speaker, it is very important to understand our position as Zambia. Zambia has got 8 Ramsar wetlands. These Ramsar wetlands, Mr. Speaker, are the reason why Zambia is the source of 2 major important rivers in Africa. The Ramsar Site Convention was ratified by our country, by the government then in 1991. The reason why we took that position as a country was to ensure that these wetlands of international importance, referred to as Ramsar sites, are well managed and are sustained and are protected. The reason is very simple. 2 river basins of international importance. The Zambezi River Basin at 2,572 kilometers, being Africa's longest, 4th longest river, as well as the Chambeshi-Luapula-Congo River at 4,700 kilometers, being Africa's 2nd longest river after the River Nile. They have their origins in Zambia. So you can understand why it is important that we in Zambia secure and manage our water resources more prudently than we are doing now, than we've done in the past. This is no issue to pass the blame. From UNIP, MMD, PF, UPND, I like to believe we have failed our country in this particular area to prudently manage our water resources. You go to everywhere in this country. You go to Luapula, for example, you will find that there is huge encroachment on very important river origins. It's very important that you go to the Bangolu swamps, you see the level of degradation, the level of encroachment. You go to Kafue wetlands, Long Kiva area, or Blue Lagoon area, you'll be amazed about the levels of encroachment. Areas which are not supposed to be used for cattle grazing, they have all been encroached.
Areas which are not supposed to be used for fishing, they've all been encroached. These are the sources of the water that we need in this country. These areas contribute a great deal to moisturing the atmosphere so that we can have prudent rains. It is not even about Forest 27. Forest 27 might be a very important area for the Charimbana River, because that is the origin or the catchment area which used to feed into the Charimbana River. And eventually the Charimbana River used to take water into the Chongwe River. We can see the state of the Chongwe River just here. The Chongwe River is a dying river. And what are we doing about it? What have we done about it? If you go to the Luangwa River is now a seasonal river. If there isn't enough rain, the Luangwa River is a trickle. And as you go past Chitungulu, Chief Mwanya's area up north, you'll find that the Luangwa River does not exist during the dry season because of the encroachment, because of the poor management of the water resource. This calls for serious introspection as a country. WAMA and the Minister of Green Economy, they've got a lot of work to do, but they cannot do this on their own. The chiefs and chiefdoms need to participate, because lo and behold, you find that chiefdoms and chiefs, traditional leaders, are in the forefront of allocating land, even in catchment areas, in river catchment areas. They need to be educated the importance of preserving the water catchment areas. You find people, you go into the Kashue River, you find out people are now building right in the Kashue River, especially near the bridge. And we are watching and clapping and saying, this is development. It is not development. One colleague earlier on talked about what has happened to the area here, which is called the Arcades and East Park and the rest of it. It is a disaster because we have allowed ourselves not to do the right things. We have allowed ourselves, because of political, I would say, for political cost cases, and we've allowed our people to encroach these particular areas. So, Mr. Speaker, this is the report that we must all speak to. This is the report that it must speak to our hearts and our souls on what should we do to reverse what we have lost. What should we do to ensure that we protect important river and water catchment areas? It is a report, Mr. Speaker, that we must not be shelved. This is a report which must become our reference points as we go to our constituencies, as we go to our districts, as in our day-to-day business. We must think about preserving water source areas and how we should manage this water resource. It is very important, Mr. Speaker, that all of us as a nation team up and work in this particular area, because failure to do that, as we are experiencing, the tragedy that will befall on all of us. No shariko akabako. Twatotera, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Water Development and Sanitation to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me begin by thanking the mover and the seconder of this motion, but also the entire Committee on Energy, Water Development and Tourism for a well-articulated report to this House. Mr. Speaker, arising from the committee's observation and recommendations, may I also take this opportunity to briefly update this House on some of the issues raised in the report of the committee. Mr. Speaker, on the National Water Resources Strategy and the Plan, the development of the National Water Resources Strategy and Plan, my ministry acknowledges the committee's observation on the delay by the Water Resources Management Authority, WAMA, in developing the plan for 4 years, from 2018 to 2022, as stipulated in the WAMA Resources Management Act number 21 of 2011. Mr. Speaker, I wish to state that the document was formulated in December 2021. However, the official launch of the National Water Resources Strategy and Strategic Plan was slightly delayed to 12th October 2022 due to the COVID pandemic. Mr. Speaker, on functional catchments, regarding the operationalization of the 4 out of the required 6 catchments, namely Zambezi, Chambeshi, Luangwa, and Kafue, while the 2, namely Luapula and Tanganyika catchments, were not operational, I wish to state that WAMA has been managing water resources in all 6 catchments of the country. But due to lack of financial resources, Chambeshi and Tanganyika catchments are managed administratively by 1 catchment office in Kasama. WAMA has further set up satellite offices in Luapula catchment in Mansa district and Chipata in Luangwa catchment to enhance its operations. Mr. Speaker, with regard to the development of catchment management plans, I wish to mention that the plans have been developed. I wish to mention that the plans have not been developed due to inadequate financial resources. Furthermore, the water resources governance structures or catchment councils, sub-catchment councils, and water users association, which are supposed to aid the formulation of the catchment management plans, have not been established due to budgetary constraints, and none promulgation of the statutory instrument, which the Ministry awaits the Minister of Justice to approve. Mr. Speaker, identification, declaration, and protection of groundwater resource areas. It must be noted that identification and mapping of water resources is for the sole purpose of enhancing its protection through eventual declaration of water resources protection areas. This activity is an ongoing initiative to increase the number of water resources protection areas mapped across the country. Protection of water resources from human-related activities is a challenge, particularly because these catchment areas are vast and endowed with natural resources, mostly in remote areas. In addition, there is a historical legacy of unplanned human settlements around water resources in the country, which negatively impacts the resource. Despite the challenge of understaffing, the Ministry through WAMA has continued to carry out enforcement and compliance monitoring of water resources. Mr. Speaker, I wish to further mention that my ministry values the observations and recommendations of your committee with respect to the performance audit report of the Auditor General on the sustainable management of water resources in Zambia 2019 to 2022. My ministry acknowledges the shortcomings regarding the encroachment of water resources from human-related activities. My ministry will continue to collaborate with various stakeholders to enhance the management and protection of water resources. My ministry wishes to propose the following recommendations to address some of the weaknesses and the challenges highlighted in the report. 1, implementation of cost-reflective raw water fees and the charges to achieve full operationalization of WAMA. Secondly, increase budgetary allocation to the authority to enhance water resources management and protection. And the third one, enhance intersectoral collaboration to promote integrated land use planning across the country. Mr. Speaker, I'll be failing in my duties if I did not acknowledge and thank your members who debated this motion, Honorable Kangombe, MP for Sesheke, Honorable Chanda Katotowe, MP for Wapula, Honorable Remember Mutale, MP for Chitambo, Honorable Msanje Mbabala, Honorable Mlengafuwe Chilubi, Honorable Mungandu Chama South, Honorable Gift Sia Lubalo Sinazongwe, Honorable Brian Kambita Zambezi East, and Honorable Chilangwa Kawamba. Mr. Speaker, your respected honorable members of parliament raised a number of issues ranging from the emphasizing on the need to protect the recharge zones, on the need to ensure integrated sustainable water use, and indeed the use of modern water monitoring equipment or tools. They also called for sustainable management of water resources, which indeed is very important. There was also emphasis on the importance of the issues highlighted in the report. I think I took note of Honorable Remember Mutale, who emphasized on a number of issues which were highlighted in the report, mainly on the lack of coordination by government officers, and also on the low fees for commercial water users. In the interest of time, Mr. Speaker, I wish to say that government has put in place a number of measures to ensure that water resources are adequately protected. But also I just want to say, Mr. Speaker, that the call by most of your very respected members of parliament on the need to scale up measures to protect the water resources, the water recharge zones, and all water resources could have not come at any better time than this one, when most of the water sources are drying up because of the tampering with the water recharge zones, because most of the streams, most of the rivers are recharged by the recharge zones, including the groundwater sources. And the human activities, the human settlements around the recharge zones have also contributed to the drying up of the water sources. But also the lack of adequate protection on the forests, the indiscriminate cutting of trees is having a huge effect on the water resources, as this is contributing to the disturbance in terms of rainfall pattern. So I take note, and I want to assure this House, Mr. Speaker, and assure the members of Parliament who debated that we have taken note of your recommendations and that government will put these to good use. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The Honorable Member for Sesheke to wind up debate.
Mr. Speaker, thank you so much on behalf of my committee. I want to thank my Vice Chair who seconded the motion, the honorable members that also supported the motion. I want to say thank you so much. The self-made researcher, who unfortunately is not here, I want to thank him also. The honorable member for Lumezi, Honorable Munia Zulu. I cannot overemphasize the need to check left, right, center as we endorse these treaties. The issue of carbon emission vis-a-vis the monies that we receive needs further interrogation. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, it's common knowledge that we still have a long way as a nation to reach industrialization. So the issue of carbon tax should be well managed to ensure that we are not lagging behind. Zambia or Africa is only emitting about 2% of the carbon emission. So for us to be hampered in terms of development because of nations that have already reached industrialization, I think we are not going to make progress as a nation. So as we receive these grants, we ought not to cover ourselves a veil that we should not develop. No, we need to develop. With these few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I want to say thank you so much on behalf of the committee, and may God bless everyone. Water is life, and we ought to preserve it. Thank you so much.
I put the question. The question is that this House do adopt a report of the Committee on Energy, Water Development and Tourism on the performance audit report on the sustainable management of water resources in Zambia 2019 to 2022 for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 30th November 2023. As many are of that opinion, say aye. Of the contrary, say no. The ayes have it. The question is resolved in the affirmative. Her Honor, the Vice President, adjournment.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the House do now adjourn.
The question is that the House do now adjourn. Any debate? Any objection? The question is agreed to. The House is now adjourned.
Time now to look at business that has been considered on the floor of the House. Madam Speaker did make an announcement. She did observe that some members have developed a tendency of making verbal arrangements with other members to ask questions appearing on the